The most profound moments of my life changed the way I see the world. They did not destroy me, but they revealed me. I started believing that pain acts like a prism, that small piece of glass that acts normal and ordinary until something passes through it. The different colors that you see, colors that were always present but were just invisible. And my name is Saif Asvani, and this is my story between the two worlds of the Democratic Republic of Congo and Kenya. Which means I spent most of my life trying to adjust to the room I was in because of the cultural expectations, the societal norms, and the expectations that were around me and the way people were living. This showed me how I am becoming someone that I want to be. Later on, I realized that the most difficult moments in your life are not interruptions to your story, but they become the story itself in the present. At 14 years of age, I moved from Congo to Kenya, right here, this school, to become a residential student. 14 years is a very, very dangerous age, if you ask me, because you're so young to understand what is happening to you emotionally, but you're old enough to feel lost. Life back in Congo was effortless. Food was being served on time, I was home before dinner, and most importantly, laundry used to fold itself. Well, at least I think it did. Then later I realized that laundry requires effort and responsibility. And suddenly, I became a residential student. And that humbled me. I realized that clothes do not magically fold themselves. And then that was a devastating moment for me because, I'm not folding my clothes anymore. And now I have to do it. But then at that age, when I was 14, my biggest concerns were football, family, getting in home, time for dinner, asking my mom what's for dinner today, that excitement. But then later on, I realized that my life is changing because boom, and suddenly I'm packing my life into a suitcase to come to Kenya. When I arrived in Kenya, it was interesting, and especially Mombasa was hot. I realized that exact moment at the airport when I was thinking excitement and grief were coming together and I was feeling both of them and I didn't think that they could coexist together, but they did, unfortunately. So then a part of me thought that this is a new adventure that I'm going to go through, and a small part of me quietly understood that life is never going to be the same again. And that was something I felt. Because I realized that when I came to Mombasa, life was really not the same. Imagine sleeping in a room full of unfamiliar people, because that was what boarding school was. When I came to Kenya, which really meant was sleeping in a room full of unfamiliar people, hearing voices. But in residential boarding schools, we call that character development. But in my mind, I was like, at that time, I didn't think about character development. Right now I sound wise, but in the moment I wasn't thinking in metaphors. But I realized that that character development is what's going to build me. I realized that there was a memory in my mind that's always going to stick with me, and that memory is the first night in dorms where the voices were feeling unfamiliar, the people were unfamiliar. All I heard was just people murmuring around the corridors who already seemed to be settled where they were. And that really got to me. Because I started thinking, back at home, people knew my story. I sat down lying in my bed, realized that, who am I when nobody here knows my story when I was back at home? Because back at home, everyone knew my story. I was somebody's son, somebody's brother, somebody's grandson, somebody's friend. That's who I was when I was back at home. So coming to Kenya was like a blank page. And that terrified me for a while because I was so scared. But then I realized later on that a blank page is not always a loss, but it is an invitation to greater things coming for you. Living between these two worlds, I realized that identity is not fixed. It is something that you find, something that evolves. And people usually spend most of their time in this world, all these years that they've lived, trying to figure out which piece of them belongs where. And that is what I was facing. Leaving home was not even the hardest thing. What was coming along my way was way greater than that. When I came here, I felt two losses in my life. And I almost felt them at the same time, where I couldn't even deal with it, where I was thinking of how I'm going to deal with it. I couldn't even imagine that those things could coexist, and they came in the same form. The first one, I realized that someone in your life can leave permanently. The second one taught me that someone in your life can leave permanently despite being present in this world. The first one left me with a kind of silence that just changes the whole atmosphere in your room. It reminds you that grief looks so ordinary from the outside, but it's really not, because grief is so much more quieter than what it is. Imagine picking up the phone, calling somebody, but knowing that nobody's going to pick up on the other side. Imagine stepping into a room, smelling the scent of the person, hearing songs, but then when you enter the room, the absence arrives before the memory does. And that's what got to me. And that was just one of the kind. And while I was going through that, I was also going through something at the same time, which was the second kind of loss. And this kind of loss was something so painful, because it was the kind of loss that never has an answer. Because this kind of loss was the absence of someone who is still present in this world, but just not present in your life. Existing, breathing, and surviving around you, just not making an impact in your life. Just unanswered thoughts, unanswered conversations, unanswered questions between you and the person. So me, I remember, I was replaying these conversations in my head at 2 a.m. in the middle of the night. I'm like, what really happened? What changed? Was it the distance? Was it the person? What was it? And then later, like every emotionally stable young person, I was replaying that conversation in the middle of the night at 2 a.m., almost gathering evidence for a criminal investigation. But that's not what it was, obviously. And I realized that some losses do not come with closure. Some losses leave all at once, and some losses leave gradually. But what really hurt was that I was grieving over someone who is still present in this world. And what really got to me was that not only losing the person, but was losing the version of myself that I was before, when they were present. And during that season of my life, I was actually breaking. Not poetically, but I was breaking. Because I realized that I'm losing myself. And when I was breaking, I thought that this is the version of me that doesn't recover. And then when people say, there's always a reason. At that time, I wished there were fewer reasons. And honestly, even a refund would have worked at that moment. But then I realized that these experiences changed the way I see things. It helped me realize that you can never outgrow grief, but you can grow around it. You eventually become the person who is greater than what really hurt you. You become larger than what hurt you, and you become a new person. And through this, I achieved different moments in my life where I realized that there's compassion in me. The compassion that is recognized when you are able to tell what you are going through before the person themselves is able to tell what's happening to them. I found independence from emotionally rebuilding myself. The emotional independence that you get from rebuilding yourself as a person before anyone else could do it. And most strangely, I found depth. You might be wondering, depth? I found depth because depth forced me to confront myself. It helped me realize that things in life change and that everything happens for a reason. It helped me realize my identity. It helped me find who I was. And that was something I was going through. Despite what was happening, despite what was going on in my life, I decided to fight through it. Today I am who I am, not despite of what has happened. I am who I am today because of it exactly. And I want you to remember that your struggles might be different from mine. Maybe you might be going through family expectations, family disappointments, maybe cultural expectations, loneliness, grief, failure, and the expression and the exhaustion of having to pretend like you are okay. And that is what I want to let you know. And I want to let you know that you are not weak for witnessing that. You are not weak for going through that. You are becoming someone that you are going to be in the next future. You are becoming someone that you will always remember. Remember that this is not proof that you are struggling, but this is evidence that you are going to conquer the world. If I think about it right now, I would think about it different. But the last time I thought about this, I thought healing was becoming the version of you before all of this happened. But I was wrong. Healing is becoming the better version of yourself today. Healing is not remembering who you were before. And strangely, through that, I was able to see what people see. I was able to see exactly what I see in myself, in someone else. I was able to tell that there is someone in the crowd today that is facing similar issues to me, but is quietly keeping calm of it, because some people are just better at it. They're better at hiding it than expressing it. I was able to achieve the fact that people can face the same thing with me, and I was able to witness that. I saw that I was able to read someone's mind because of how and what they were going through. I realized that there's someone in the crowd that is facing the same that is fighting those invisible battles in them, but isn't speaking up. I realized I was able to read a student smiling in class, pretending to be okay, a student who always jokes around, and a student who always says, "I'm fine," when you ask them how you are. Maybe one of you is here. You in the crowd is also pretending to be okay when you're not. And through this, I realized that different moments are faced by different people in this world. I realized that many things in this life do not work your way. You have to find a way to work around it. And then something that I discovered was that there is always that someone who says it is what it is when they're emotionally going through something. But they say that exact phrase right before suppressing all that emotion in here, in their heart. And that made me discover that grief is something way more bigger than what I expected. Some of you here tonight need to hear it. Do not rush to become who you were before all of this happened to you. Do not be ashamed of what you've gone through. Just take it as a life lesson. Do not be afraid of saying what is happening to you. Do not be afraid of asking for help. But all I can tell you is that this is proof that you are becoming a better version of yourself. And one of the most human things we can do when someone emotionally suppresses themselves is be the one to see their struggle as proof that they have lived and not as weakness. You are the one who decides what to do next. I want you to remember that all these life lessons that you've learned from wiser people and someone sitting right next to you are what really happens to you. These profound moments did not only change me, but they shaped me. Today, I can proudly say that I want to leave an impact on someone that will not be ashamed to say that they are facing a problem. And then later on, I want you to realize that to never be ashamed of what is happening to you. I want you to reach out. And then most evidently, what we can do as humans is see this as something that we are all growing through. And then something I'd like to leave you with also, once again tonight, is be the change in the person sitting next to you. Help them visualize who is next to you is someone that is going to create an impact. Surround yourself with someone who you think is better than you. Remember that this is evidence that you have lived the world. This is not evidence that you are weak. This is evidence that you are ready to conquer the world. Pain does not take away your colors. It simply reveals them. And that is the art of surviving yourself, ladies and gentlemen.